So here are more depictions of statues of figures of statues or statue figures rather. This one is Burkina in origin. This one as well. And again, this is American depictions of or depictions of American Indians here. Okay, look again, the similarities. Okay, look at the similarities. Okay, background as well. Okay, and it's very good to say that it's a mysterious, very ancient culture. Okay, that's something that we must keep in mind. It's important to note that the first permanent English settlement in this area commenced in the spring of 1670, at which time the colonists found the local Indians residing along various rivers near the coastline. These locations were not their permanent residences. However, as the indigenous people in this area followed a traditional pattern of seasonal migrations, the Wando and the other tribes appear to have spent the spring and summer months living in semi-permanent camps near the seacoast, fishing and farming, and then moving farther inland during the autumn and winter months to hunt and to dress animal skins. Okay, again, a mysterious, very ancient tradition. Okay, check out the similarities. These American Indians here, okay, they are cooking their catch. And again, this is Burkina Faso or Burkinabe statue figures that are quite similar to the depictions of these American Indians here. Like the other indigenous people residing here in the 1670s, the population of the Wando people was relatively small. Early European settlers observed that each of these coastal tribes numbered less than 50 bowmen, representing around 200 individuals, due to the paucity, meaning scarcity, shortage, insufficiency, lack, inadequacy, so on and so forth. So basically, due to the shortage of surviving early documents and the cultural bias of the early settlers, we have very little information about the culture of the Wando and the other indigenous groups that once inhabited the low country of South Carolina. All that remains of them now are fragments of handmade pottery that have been found in local archaeological sites. More than 100 Native American place names survive the South Carolina Low Country, like the word Wando. However, we don't even know what sort of language or languages these people once spoke. Could these people have removed to West Africa? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so immediately after arriving in 1670, the English settlers began claiming lands on which to establish homes and farms or plantations. These colonial intrusions displaced. These colonial intrusions displaced. These colonial intrusions displaced many of the indigenous peoples with whom the white settlers attempted to maintain amicable relations. Dodge the hijack. In 1675, the Wando people, along with the Etowans, Sampa, and Siwi, asked the English settlers for a reservation of land They asked. They asked the English settlers for a reservation of land that they could inhabit without further displacement. The provincial government allocated to these combined tribes a large tract of land on both sides of the Wando River, 3 miles beyond its mouth. Around 1675, therefore, the Wando moved a bit to the northeast, and perhaps continued to do so as more settlers moved into the area now generally called Mount Pleasant. So it's important to highlight that the Catawba tribe included some of the fiercest warriors, which helped them survive longer. Now I'm reading this from a certain source. The tribe claimed 11 other tribes as enemies, and the colonists knew this. They were friendly with the colonists and were even given a title for 144,000, interesting number, acres by the King of England. The Catawba tribe was having difficulty keeping the colonists off their land. Okay, the Catawba was having difficulty keeping the colonists off their land, and eventually began renting out land to the colonists. Now, this is very important. Later, the colonists were not satisfied with renting land and began demanding the land for themselves. So, as a result, we're trying to connect the dots here. Where did the Wando go? Are remnants still here? Okay, because if these colonists come in and they're demanding land for themselves, and as we already read, the Wando end up being displaced. Displaced to where? Okay, again, where did the Wando go? Okay, I'm trying to paint a picture here so we get some context and we connect what happened. Okay, so before European settlers encroached on this land, that is to say the Americas, 350 years ago, the Wando people enjoyed cool ocean breezes here during the warm months of the solar year. After their disappearance around the turn of the 18th century, that is somewhere around 1696. We'll see that going forward. The land was owned by a succession of white men who grew rich from the labors of generations of enslaved people of African descent. At the site of the new library, they grew rice, cotton, and other vegetables, and scooped clay from the Wando River to make bricks on a plantation once known as Elm Grove. Those people are all gone, yet their descendants still form part of the neighborhood. Okay, so again, after a while, the colonists were not satisfied with renting land, right? To restate what happened to the Catawba, and began demanding the land for themselves. So understand, there wasn't any righteous acquisition of the land. So the Wando just dematerialized, and materialized where? Okay, keep that in mind. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 12. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Okay, yeah, because you go from enjoying cool breezes, migrating the fullness of the land at your discretion, depending upon the weather and the seasons, to being displaced and eventually disappearing as a result of colonial inquisition, intrusion, and violence to acquire the land. That's pretty sad. Okay, Psalms chapter 55 verse 17, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. Okay, yeah, because when the colonists got here, for the most part, you try to protect what's yours. So if they did encounter any hostility, rightfully so. Yet, by most accounts, many tribes were peaceful. They were somewhat peaceful. So again, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. All right, over 500 treaties broken. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. Okay, this is very characteristic of colonists and their progeny. Okay, this is 2nd Ezra chapter 11, verse 42. For thou hast afflicted the meek. For thou hast afflicted the meek. Thou hast hurt the peaceable. Thou hast loved liars, and destroyed the dwellings of them that brought forth fruit. Okay, remember the cornucopia. And hast cast down the walls of such as did thee no harm. Verse 43, therefore is thy wrongful dealing come up unto the highest. Okay, meaning the Most High. He's watching. He's seen the affliction. Okay, and thy pride unto the mighty. So what has happened won't go unanswered, and what continues to happen won't go unanswered. Okay, so here is where I want to get into the correlation that the Most High led me to between West African and American tribes as a result of examining my Y chromosome DNA and matching to the Bisa people. Okay, language similarities. We see Burkina Wando, meaning it's the plural form of Wango, meaning masked man. Wando means masked men. Nakomse Mose Tingabisi. Okay, these are some terms that we're going to get context of. Burkina Faso, South Carolina, Wando Amerique. Okay, Ouando. So now remember in the beginning when the French colonial officer Lieutenant Lucien Marc referred to the Wango culture as a really ancient tradition, antedating the arrival of the Mose, Nakomse, in the basin of the Volta, which these peoples found among the peoples they conquered. Here's where I'm going to visit the Burkinabe oral tradition to provide proper context in order to gain an understanding and overstanding of these events. Okay, so circa late 14th to early 15th century, the Dagomba, the Mamprusi, and the Nankana are ruled by a powerful leader known as Naba Ndega. Okay, Naba is a Hebrew word meaning prophet, whose capital is then located at Gambaga, north of present-day Ghana. The Mose give credence to the following account. Naba Ndega has a daughter named Enyenega, whom he will not grant her permission to marry since he values her exceptional warrior skills so highly and is distinguished by her Amazon-like qualities. Pursuant to various sources, one day her horse will lead her too far into the forest and she will be rescued by an elephant hunter named Riale, a Bisa man of traditional royal origin and son of the king of Mali. Alternatively, pursuant to other sources, Princess Nyenega takes a horse and escapes her father and his will for her to remain unmarried. She travels north, disguising herself as a man into present-day Burkina Faso, future Mose country, where she will soon be rescued by Riale, a local Bisa man, and recognized as a beautiful woman. Nevertheless, Riale wins the love of Yenenga and takes her to live in the forest near Buti. Riale and Yenenga will have a son whom they will name Wedrago, meaning stallion. in honor of the horse that carried Inyenaga in her flight to the north. A few years later, Inyenaga sends Ouedraogo to Gambaga to visit his maternal grandfather Nabanedega and other relatives, in which Ouedraogo is going to attain adulthood there. Ouedraogo flourishes into a natural leader of the people and one day rides north, returning with Dagomba cavalrymen into present-day Burkina Faso, conquering his and his father's tribe, the Bisa, as well as the Gurusi, Nintsi, Fulse, Kirpsi, and others. Ouedraogo the stallion will establish Tinkodago, a contracted form of Tinga, meaning land, earth, Kodago, meaning old, ancient, archaic. So Tinga Kodago, old earth, where he has many sons, primarily Zungrana, Rawa, and Lompo Diaba, and initiates the mighty Mose dynasty as the first Mogonaba, world prophet or ruler. For the Mose, Tinkodago, a small town southeast of Ouagadougou, is still revered as the base of the powerful Mose Empire. The solid centralized political organization of the empire and its army of horsemen will empower it to dominate the entire region. The children of Ouedraogo, primarily Zungrana, succeeds him to the throne of Tinkodago. Rawa will travel north and establish the kingdom of Zandoma. Later integrated with Yatinga, Lompo Diaba settles Pama, east of Tinkodago, and establishes the kingdom of Gurma as his throne. Subsequently, Ubri, a son, therefore direct descendant of Zungrana, departs with the mighty warrior cavalry under his command for the conquest of other territories to the west. Ubri coordinates an assault against Kumbintenga, the land of warriors, the capital of the Nyonyose and Gurusi peoples, the first inhabitants of Burkina Faso. Now, under the Moaga domination, after heavily sustained combat, the opposition capitulates. Determined to make it the capital of his new command, Ubri renames the city Wogdo, meaning come honor me, which will become Ouagadougou, and proclaims himself Mogonaba, leader of the Mose Empire, creating his first royal dynasty of Ubri Tenga, meaning land of Ubri. Now Ubri will share his kingdom by giving a block to each of his 333 descendants. Therefore, pursuant to certain sources, the early Mose kingdoms of Tinkodago, Ouagadougou, meaning Ubri Tenga, and Gurma were created in the middle to late 15th century. Okay, so we got to further understand that the conquered peoples and the invading horsemen are welded into a new society called Mose, and spoke the language of the conquerors, Mure, the descendants of the invaders, a group called Nakomse, children of the Nam, or right and power to rule, will become chiefs, kings, and emperors, called Nanamse, singular form Naba, again meaning prophet. The descendants of the subjugated peoples are called Tengabisi, children of the earth. The men who will hold some political power before the imminent invasion will become earth priests, or Ting Sobadamba, responsible for the use of the land and the propitiation or appeasement of earth spirits, access to supernatural forces controlling land fertility, and is retained by the lineage of the Ting Soba, right, singular for earth chief priests or earth priests, presumed to be the descendants of the autochthonous people, the Bisa people, the original settlers antedating the Mose military. Now, the differences between the Nakomse and the Tengabisi are striking, only the Tingabisi use masks, meaning Wando. Now this is very important. Only the Tingabisi use masks, meaning Wando, and only the Nakomse use figures in the context of political celebrations. The autochthonous people, the Bisa, were not fully assimilated into Mosai states, so the dichotomy in the case of Wango or Wando is between the lineage, meaning invading the Gombas' progeny with Bisa women, and its semi-non-member relative, that is to say all Bisa people, since only Tingabisi use masks, meaning Wando, and only Nakomse use figures during political celebrations. Okay? Again, with the notable exceptions of the Gurmanchi and the Lobi, this helps establish that the Bisa, as well as the Nuna, Lela, Winiama, and that word should be very familiar to you. Winiya, Winiama, Kasena, Sisala, Bwa, Bobo, Samo, and other Gurusi peoples, Karumba, Dogon, and most of the peoples in the region are all Wando or Oueanto or Wando peoples. They were the peoples primarily and not another kind in Berkeley County, South Carolina, on the present day South Carolina Atlantic coast of America, right, alongside the Sampi, the Siwi, the Kiowa, the Winiya peoples, Santee peoples. Okay, so this is Deuteronomy chapter 33, verses 20 to 21. And of Gad he said, Blessed be he that enlargeth Gad. He dwelleth as a lion and teareth the arm with the crown of his head. Verse 21. And he provided the first part for himself, because there in a portion of the lawgiver was he seated. And he came with the heads of the people. He executed the justice of the Most High and his judgments with Israel. Okay, because a lot, again, through the story, a lot was going on. And Gad was considered part of the lawgiver. And we'll see why in subsequent precepts ahead. This is 1 Chronicles chapter 12, verse 8. And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David into the hold of the wilderness men of might and men of war fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler. Now, buckler just simply means a spear, a type of spear, whose faces were like the faces of lions, meaning bold, and were as swift as the roes upon mountains. Okay, so some will say it is rumored, part of the legend is that the Mosai descend from Levi. Okay, however, again, remember the Bisa people, they were not fully assimilated into Mosai states. Okay, so it is rumored because the Bisa were also fierce fighters and hunters, as well as the other small tribes in Burkina Faso, that they were part of the 7 sons of Gad. Okay? So here it says, in the Low Country, as in other parts of the New World, European settlers introduced a variety of diseases and abuses to the indigenous peoples that rapidly reduced their numbers. Although surviving documentary evidence of these diminishing populations is lamentably sparse, the Wando people appear to have ceased to exist as a distinct group within 25 years of the founding of South Carolina. A law ratified here in the spring of 1696 mentioned the names of 11 local Indian tribes who had agreed to help the settlers destroy what they call beasts of prey. That list does not mention the Wando people, however, whose numbers might have been so small in 1696 as to cease to contribute a distinct band or tribe.